This will also be recorded as an FYI so we can post on the website. So I'll start my presentation shortly. So please know that this is really meant to inform you all about the process of team selection, what process we go through depending on the age of your child or children. So we want to inform you to the best of our ability. If at any point you do have questions, don't hesitate to use the chat. We'll also make sure there's time at the end for a Q&A. But again, if something is fresh in your mind and you want to ask it as we're going through the presentation, don't hesitate and just use the chat, and we'll see if we can address it as early as possible. So bear with me. All right. And again, it's not a necessity to have your screen on, as long as you keep yourself on mute for now. Obviously, that will make sure that we don't have additional background noise that will only lead to confusion. All right, so there we go. All right, so virtual town hall in regards to travel team selection. So a couple of key items that we want to discuss, bring to your attention, provide you with information on. So what we're going to do is discuss the actual processes in place regarding team selection. And then, depending on the age of your child or children, all right, it may vary a little bit, but we hope to provide you with as much clarity on this specifically. Then the evaluation process that we currently have in place for our current travel players will be addressed. We also talk about the evaluation process for a non-travel player who is interested in playing travel, just to make sure you have all the necessary information. We'll talk quickly about the evaluation criteria used, all right, so you get a better understanding of that, and then there will be some time for Q&A as well. Hopefully we can get everything done quickly while making sure that everything that we want to go through is addressed, as well as allowing you a chance to ask your questions. So again, tonight's agenda. All right, so the travel team selection process. So there's a couple of very important key considerations that drive us throughout this process. So we want to make sure that we assess and evaluate all eligible participants accurately, or at least to the best of our ability. That's how simple this. As much as it is a challenge to capture child development in numbers, we have to come up with some kind of means to help us determine what children are best placed. And that goes hand in hand with our second point, and probably the most important key consideration, but again, 1 and 2 go hand in hand. Our objective has always been and still is to place our members in the best possible environment. And that's based on playing ability as well as interest. And we're, like I said, I've been with this organization, this association, for almost 8 years, and I'm proud to have been part of this organization for almost 8 years as a director of coaching. We offer something for everyone, given their wants and needs. But again, for the success of the experience, we want to make sure that when it comes to travel, that we get as much information possible on all the members to help place them in the best possible environment. All right. So what I'm going to do now, and I'll go quickly, but it's broken down by age group. All right, depending on the age of a participant, all right, there may be different processes in place. At the end of what I'm just going to go through right now, I'll allow you to ask any questions you may have. Every time I'm referring to a certain age group, I'm referring to someone's year of birth. All right, so bear with me, but it's really simple. If you have a child born in a certain year, you will know exactly what you need to do, whether you're currently in travel or if you're currently not in travel but are interested in trying out for travel. All right, so we just discussed in a separate meeting you had pre-travel program. I have included it here anyway. I'll go through it quickly. All right, this is for anyone born in 2014, boy or girl, interested in travel. Right, so they have 2 training sessions a week, right, during which they will be evaluated. We have some Saturday league play, 4v4, 5v5, 5v5, sorry, and 7-a-side, right, on Saturdays as part of the program. This is a 9-week-long program, which ends with the pre-travel festival on June 4th and 5th. We have an academy director that runs this program on behalf of WSA, and all participants are assessed and evaluated throughout the process. to help us determine which players may be ready to play travel come U9. Right, and for this age group, but it applies to almost every age group, travel teams are announced early June with the exact date to be confirmed. We just spoke about the UH. I can't imagine there are any other questions about this. If not, if there are questions, sorry, I should say, use the chat, please. And a deep breath on my end. Now we're going to talk about the 2012s, which will be our U11s come the fall of 2022, and our 2013s, who are currently U9 based on the year of birth and go into U10. This is what we do to help us through the process. So we started age group academies the week of April 4th. We didn't run anything last week, and we have, including today and tomorrow, 5 more weeks left. This is a 6-week program, okay? This is on Monday for the boys and on Tuesday for the girls. All right, this is for all current travel players and non-travel players. All those kids will be out on the same field at the same time. This program will be run by an age group lead assigned by the association with a curriculum run by, provided by our coaches, and that is consistent throughout all academies. Basically, all these kids will be mixed early on, and we'll figure out a way to score them accordingly throughout those 6 weeks, which is a big part of the puzzle. It helps us determine where players place, and it will give us valuable information, especially on the non-travel players, right? But this is a key part of the travel team selection process, right? Now, we also, for our current travel players, so if you're already in travel now as a 2012 or 13 boy or girl, all right, we will also seek out the pro coaches and head coaches involved with each and every team and fill out a spring evaluation on current travel players. Right? Again, to the point that I made earlier, we're trying to get as much information on every player on their development, because the Age Group Academy gives us a lot of valuable information, but what the pro coach and head coach provide us with as well will be an evaluation based on basically their entire seasonal year, so to speak, from fall all the way through the point where we're at right now. Right, so that gives us more data points and better information on all our travel players. Anyone, any questions about the 2012 and or 13 evaluations? All right, excellent. Just moving on. All right, so again, breaking it up by age. All right, I'm not going to talk about the 2010s and 11s. All right, so the incoming U12s are born in 2011. The incoming U13s are born in 2010. Separating it out between travel and non-travel for clarity here. So if you're currently in travel, the professional and or parent coach will fill out a spring evaluation. Something I just discussed earlier with the younger players as well, but it is a big part of the process. We also had festivals for all these teams, all these age groups a couple of weeks ago, which also provided us with some additional information on all of these players. The biggest means that we're using now for players, though, are these evaluations done by the parent and professional head coach, because they really tell us what the overall progress has been like for each and every player in travel. All right, so this is what we do for our travel players in those age groups. If you're a non-travel player, all right, you will be invited to train with an existing travel team to be evaluated. Better yet, if you had reached out to me already on this, I've already sent out invites for your son or daughter to attend training sessions with an existing team in a respective age group. Okay, if you are now on the school and find out about this for the first time, please make sure to reach out to me, all right, in the coming days, and I can set your son or daughter up to be evaluated during existing travel training sessions to see if a current non-travel player could potentially fit travel going into the fall 2022. All right, before I move on, any questions about the evaluations for the incoming under 12s and under 13s? All right. Either I'm very clear or people have plans later this evening as well. All right, last but not least, the incoming under 14s, players born in 2009, and the incoming under 15s, born in 2008. So, very simple. If you are currently in travel as a 09 or 08 born player, your coach will complete, again, it's a professional head coach this time, a spring evaluation. Right? There's a key data point that we use to determine where players be placed for next year. If you're not in travel, as stated before, you will be invited to train with an existing travel team in your age group, right? Based on your year of birth as well as your gender. And we'll send you to, or we'll give you the opportunity to take part in a couple sessions to be evaluated accordingly. Very simple. All right. Anyone, any questions about these specific two age groups? All right. Before I go into the actual travel team selection process, Eric and or Matt, do you think I've missed anything about the programs and processes in place?
No, I think you did a good job. I also put the link in the chat to the travel evaluation website. So that way, if anybody has any questions that may not necessarily be answered, they could go there as well, or they could reach out to either Matt or myself, either via the chat or via email.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Jutka. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the travel team selection process. So delve a little deeper, provide a little bit more insight there with some additional content that I think is really worthwhile sharing with all you guys. So first and foremost, all right, we just did this. All right, so the process, all right, as in the travel team selection process. We talk about a process because, as I said before, we try to get as much data information, if you will, on each and every participant, every player interested in playing travel next year. Obviously, we see consistency across the board, so there are certain selection criteria that we use. So the end of the spring evaluations on all travel players are based on the four following categories. So we talk about one, the overall understanding of the game, right? Just how well does someone read the game, right? What is their basic understanding of the game like? And again, linking into one's age as well, because obviously there's different things we can expect from under 9 versus versus an under 12 and the 13 or on the 14 player. We also talk about their ability to make decisions. So obviously you have reading the game, but you also have game insight, which impacts your decision making. Right, soccer is a dynamic sport in which you have to make decisions in scenarios in which you're always under pressure applied by the opponents. Right, so again, how well are you able to make decisions under pressure of an opponent? We talk about your ability to execute these decisions, or technique, if you will. Number 2 and 3 go hand in hand. Although I know of players that are very good decision makers and struggle a little bit on the ball technically, or vice versa, players that are excellent on the ball but struggle a little bit to make the right decision still. And last but not least, we also have a category on coachability and commitment. So it's twofold. Coachability is really one's willingness to get better, one's willingness to absorb information shared with you. All right. Is someone, a willing participant, or at times a hindrance in the learning experience for others as well? Like that's all very important information to have. And when we say commitment, it's twofold. It's obviously attending sessions, making sure you fulfill your commitment when it comes to games as well. And again, making the most of these sessions. All right. So overall, these are the selection criteria we use to evaluate the players. All right. And it has to be said, and again, this is a simplification maybe, but it's not just about running fast or kicking the ball hard, which is really important to note. We really look at the game of soccer as a dynamic sport, and we don't try to just separate technique out of the game and judge someone just on that alone, or even the physicality of someone. Because the physical component, unfortunately, often gets confused with one's development as a soccer player. All right, we really think about it as before I move on, is someone a good soccer player? Where is he or she in his or her development as a soccer player? All right, so there's a couple other things that are really important that in the long run will help determine where someone ends up. Your attitude. We talked about coachability, attitude, right? Your effort. All right. I can tell you right now, in all my years in youth sports and youth soccer in specific, right? Talent alone is not enough. All right. But these are some, your attitude, your effort, perseverance, discipline, your willingness to take responsibility, which could at an older age, for example, mean help out a coach set up warm-ups and things like that. Get the rest of the team to participate well in warm-ups, whatever it may be. A mentality that shows that you want to get better, that you want to win. All right, you're a competitor, and your ability to learn. These are all really important aspects of the evaluation process as well. All right, talent alone, however you define talent, is just not enough. Ability and potential alone is not going to get you there. I played soccer growing up, and I was never the best player on my team, but I do know that those that had the innate ability and had the potential, the majority of them dropped out as time progressed because they were missing some of the other components. I'll come back to that in a little bit, but you can't underestimate that. Being able to be coached, your willingness to work hard, a positive, they're all very, very important. Again, you could have ability, but ability alone is not going to get you there. All right. Now I'm going to make it a little interesting. If you tune in for the last call, which I don't know if there's anyone that did, but I have two interesting questions for you. And use the chat just to answer these questions, and obviously we'll find out why I'm addressing it as such as well. So, which nation topped the medal standings at the 2022 Winter Olympics? And by the way, they also topped the medal standings at the 2018 Winter Olympics. All right, please use the chat if you have a hunch. All right, and no, it wasn't the US, nor was it China. Just want to throw it out there. So which nation topped the medal standings at the 2022 Winter Olympics? Excuse me. All right. Take a stab at this, please. I'm trying to make it a little interactive here. And VPs are excluded because they know the answer already. There's two people that are correct. Norway, I believe this is the flag for Norway, topped the medal standings at the last two Winter Olympics, which for a nation the size of Norway is quite impressive, because it wasn't just that they topped it, they topped it by a huge distance from 1 to 2 as well, which is very, very impressive. Now, one could say that Norway, given their location, is geared towards winter sports, and maybe that, because Norway is such a developed country, that people are of the means to participate in some of these sports. However, there's one thing in particular Norway has done as a nation that has helped them develop a lot of successful athletes, because it's not just limited to winter sports. Even in the Summer Olympics, there are some very good Norwegian athletes, very successful there. And even in soccer, both men's on the men's and women's side have developed some very good players. And that is very simple. The Norwegian government got involved, recognizing that the sport can have a ginormous and positive impact on the development of children if run appropriately. If as long as the focus is on the right elements. And the number one thing that they wanted children to focus on was fun as well as sampling. With championships, whatever sport they're in, with championships not allowed till the age of 13. So it's all about mastering the basics, finding a love for a sport, with the result that a small country like Norway is so successful, right? And again, maybe in a smaller country, a well-developed smaller country, and I said it with a lot of respect, it may be easier to do so, but it just shows that the model that often is used in the US, where I think it's recruitment over development, unfortunately, may not be as beneficial as people make it out to be. Right, where it's just the magic of the numbers, and it's often at the expense of too many children. Now, another one. Which nation produces more professional ice hockey? I had to add that, players per capita than any other country in the world. All right, and again, it's not the US. Just want to throw it out there. Nor is it the Netherlands, because we barely play ice hockey in my native country. Anyone want to take a stab at that one? All right, let's see what we get. Ooh, Iceland. I like that. It's not Canada. So for a long time, so what I do have to highlight that this is professional hockey, ice hockey players, and not just exclusively hockey players in the NHL. However, I think as of late, this also applies to NHL. Although if someone has other information and is able to correct me there, it is actually Sweden. All right. And similar to Norway, after doing a huge amount of research and recognizing what children need, they figured out that this is a mill of hockey for boys, males. I don't have any data on ice hockey in Sweden for women, unfortunately, but they recognize that the idea of early recruitment of pre-adolescent boys is ridiculous, because you don't know where children are going to end up in a couple of years. You don't know how to get through puberty. So recruitment for like select teams is not done till they're 16 years of age, which for some boys is still too early, by the way, because boys tend to develop later. But as a result, they have been a powerhouse in hockey. That's one, but they've also produced more professional ice hockey players than any other country in the world, including Canada, where, you know, we all know that hockey is the number one sport in Canada. But again, it's recognizing what children need and acting accordingly. So not focusing on recruitment, but focusing on development and understanding that there's processes in place that children need to get through before you're before we should even be thinking about elite competition. All right, now on the topic. So I've shared this in the past, but I want to highlight this again, which is, again, when we talk about travel team selection, our objective, as I stated before, is to place players in an environment where they're best suited based on where they are in their development currently. And their needs could change from year to year in a variety of different means. All right, but what does need to be highlighted, and we seem to forget nowadays in a society where it's all about, I want it now and I want it as quickly as possible, is that child development, right? Everyone seems to think that it is what you see on the left side over here, right? And that it's a natural progression, and that there's no bumps in the road, there's no challenges to be dealt with, no setbacks, no disappointments. But true child development in every way is more like what you see on the right side. Ups and downs, steps back sometimes before you can take steps forward, right? Which is really important to know, all right? When you look at the development of a child as a whole, but also when it comes to their development, say in a sport like soccer, right? Sometimes they do a little better, sometimes they may struggle a little bit more, but it's really, really important as an adult, and we try to really make sure we're aware of that as well. It's really important to make note of that. All right, it's not what you see on the left, it is what you see on the right. And we as adults, both coaches, administrators, and parents, have to accept that and have to understand that this is what we're working with. All right, so a couple other things I want to share with you. So I'll start on the left. So here's the 4 images of 4 different professional athletes, 3 of them in professional soccer, but they all have a story to be told. So I'll start on the top left, because that's probably the one athlete that most don't recognize. The gentleman in the left corner of the screen is Jay Demerit. He's a retired player by now, but he actually played in the English Premier League, and he represented the US men's national team on many occasions. However, he is not the typical product of an environment in which recruitment is chosen over development. He played collegiate soccer, but when he came out of college, he was not deemed good enough to play in the MLS. And it is about 2 decades ago. So the MLS also has undergone a lot of changes since. But 20 years ago or so, he was not good enough to play in the MLS. After playing some semi-pro soccer, he decided, you know what, I'm not going to give up on my dream yet. So he ended up with a European passport, I guess, through some grandparents, ended up in England. And he started playing soccer, I guess you can call it semi-pro, but at the 9th tier in England, right? Not giving up on his dream. Eventually ending up on at the 7th tier team. And from there, he ended up at Watford, by the way, a club that's now in the English Premier League as well. But that's not the conventional route that many think you have to go through. But this was someone that, you know, didn't want to give up on his dream, But two, he was not seen by anyone, even at 22, coming out of college, as a talent or someone with potential. But he persevered, he dealt with the challenges, put a lot of effort, remained positive, all right? And look what it brought him, right? A professional playing career in England, right? And even representing the men's national team. Now, I'm going to go clockwise. So next to him is the picture of the real Ronaldo. Just want to add that as well. Everyone knows Cristiano Ronaldo, but there's only really one Ronaldo, if you ask me. This gentleman here, when Brazil played the World Cup in '94 in the US, they won the World Cup. Ronaldo was on, actually in the selection of that squad. I think he was only 17 at the time. 2 years prior, his club that he was at in Brazil, when he was 15 years old, didn't think he was good enough to pay for his bus fare to and from the training ground. Right, and that was at a club, a prestigious club that has produced many good players. But at the time, people thought he was 15, and that's 15 right now, right? That I'm talking about, that he wasn't good enough. This gentleman turned out 2 years later to be an exceptional player. All right, but everyone in the club was wrong on that within 2 years. Right, it just shows you that what you see right in front of you may not say much about where that child or player will go in the years to come. Moving on to the right bottom corner, Alex Morgan. I hope everyone recognizes her at least. Very successful player on the women's national team. She grew up playing soccer in, I believe it was California, in the AYSO league, which AYSO is basically a nationwide rec program. Never known as a super talented player. She didn't only commit to like what we now consider Premier Elite soccer till she was 14, 15, something along those lines. I could be slightly mistaken there. And see what it led her to. Never was seen as an exceptional player. All right, but now at the point where she is in her career, I mean, she's more winding down than anything. Again, no one expected her to be as good as she is right now. All right, and just some examples right there. And then on the left bottom, Michael Jordan, who the story is famous, but at 16, he was cut from the high school basketball team because he was deemed not good enough there. And we all know where he ended up. So why am I sharing all these stories? Everyone always looks at team selection as the end all. All right, my son or daughter is on A, B, C, D, whatever team. All right, I need them to be somewhere else, whatever. You don't know exactly what's going to happen in the years to come. There's so many factors impacting the development of a child. There's so many factors impacting the development of a player. All right, both the environment in the club as well as at home. What do they do on their own outside the structured training environment as well? But most importantly of all, it just highlights how important it is to be patient, because even at the highest level, people struggle to figure out, which players are going to make it and which aren't, right? And I highlighted some really high-level examples. Now, taking it a little closer to home, those who are familiar with our program, the WSA, we offer something for everyone, as I like to say. We also have our Union County Football Club, which is part of the association and starts at under 12, which is for, if you want to, the more committed soccer players that want a little bit more out of the experience. So the 2005s were U10, and that is, 8 years ago, when I started with the association, right? So I've seen all these kids on the boys and girls 05 UCFC teams grow up, develop, and go through the program over the years. So I looked at where they started at U10. Between the boys and girls team, we had, I believe, if I do this correctly, 22 players, right? So this pie chart shows you 22 players that at U10 were part of the association that are still playing on one of our UCFC teams. All right, just to highlight how hard it is to predict where players are going to end up. 7 out of the 22, which is less than a third, started on an 18. 7, right? 8 years forward, only 7 were on an A team at U10. 3 of them, as shown, were on the B team. 9 of them, which is close to 50%, were on a C team. 2 of them were on a D team at U10, and there was 1 child at U10 that wasn't even in travel yet. Why again am I sharing this? Patience. You don't know what's going to happen in the years to come. All I do know for sure is that those that stick with it, those that put in the work, those that are coachable and are able to deal with challenges along the way, those are the ones that are gonna, thrive and really make something of the experience. You can't force that, right? You got to allow development to take place, right? And it needs to come from within the child. All right. So can we predict the future? It's impossible to determine exactly where players end up in a few years from now. We look at it from year to year based on the processes that I explained earlier on in this presentation. All right. Child development cannot be accelerated. All right. We live in a day and age that everything is available at the push of a button. And it seems like because of that, we have no patience anymore. But when it comes to child development, more patience is needed than ever. All right. And doing more earlier and at a younger age is not going to accelerate the growth, right? If there was such a hack, as in there was a quick fix, we would use it and I would share it with you guys, but there is no such thing. All right. Most importantly of all, referring to all those U10s that are now playing 05 UCFC, they're still playing because they want to, not because they have to. All right. The experience needs to be fun. Key part of our development philosophy, we need your help to ensure it is fun throughout the experience as well. Really, 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 really important. Along the way, and again, I showed you that graph of what people think child development looks like and what it actually is. Along the way, children will have to deal with challenges, setbacks, struggle, and disappointment. That's just part of life. That's nature. All right. The manner in which you deal with that will help determine where you end up. But it helps develop a growth mindset as long as you accept or embrace the idea that failure does not exist. And these are lessons that don't just benefit you in youth soccer, but in anything you do. All right. Challenges, setbacks, struggles, and disappointment are part of life. All right. But if you can persevere, as I said earlier as well, you'll grow through, you'll come through it, you'll grow up to be better because of that. All right. And focus on the process, please, and the lessons learned along the way. All right. And as I just showed, with the number of 18 players now playing on the UCFC 2005 boys and girls teams, not a lot of players from the 18 that are playing on that team now. Early success is no indicator of future success. All right. No college coach, if you ever think about that, will ask your son or daughter what they did at U9 or U10. All right. It's really about what you do throughout the years. All right. As long as you're willing to stick it out. All right. And hopefully this quote from Arthur Ashe is, highlights it as well. It's not so much about the destination, although the focus is always on that. It's about the journey. Success is a journey, not a destination. And doing is often more important than the outcome. There's so many valuable lessons children can learn from participating in sports like soccer. Let's focus on that. With that, our objective is to get players, children in the best possible environment based on where they are in their development, based on their needs. We reevaluate them from year to year for that reason. All right, that's a lot to process. I hope you found it worthwhile. Are there any questions for either for me or for our VPs of travel? Exciting. All right, Eric and Ahmed, it doesn't seem to be any questions yet. Do you guys have anything to add to what I shared with everyone before I wrap it up?
No, I think you were very informative, concise with the slides. Again, I hope the website pulls together anything that may have been missed. And if not, if anybody wants to put anything into the chat, or again, always feel free to send an email either to myself or to Matt. And I say that there's a question about the practice and game schedule for travel teams in the fall. So typically for the fall, and just a key point to note, and it's one that Ruben may have brought up earlier, is that when you join the Westfield Soccer Association travel team, it is a fall-spring commitment. So you are committed starting in the fall through the end of the spring season. The fall season has 2 weekday practices, 1 Saturday training session, and then a game generally on Sunday. And then I just put the website back in. And then in the spring, same thing. It is the 2 training sessions, Saturdays become a little more challenging depending on the additional sports that are played, but it still is the one game. And it's roughly 10 games in the fall, 10 games in the spring, with winter training in between and additional supplemental summer training and programs that are put together as well. And then the evaluations are done. So they're done. Ruben, I don't know if you want to jump in, because this obviously changes depending on the age. So they're done throughout the spring for the younger, and then at specific times for the older players. I think if you go to that website, they'll have all of the sort of dates and the sort of the schedule by which the evaluations are done.
Can we confirm the age of the players? Then we can actually answer the question based on the needs. Sorry, well, what age are we talking about?
It doesn't say, it just says one of the evaluations.
Yeah, that's why I figured I asked the question so we can actually help her.
Yeah, so 2013. So that is the current U9s.
Yeah, so the age group academy. Let me go back to that really quick.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so the 2000, there we go. So the 2013s do the age group academies, boys on Monday, girls on Tuesday. And the link that Eric just provided has that information with the exact time and location for these evaluations. Let me know if that answers the question or not. And if there's any other questions about either this or anything else, please let us know now while we still have you.
I also just added the website for the evaluation criteria. So this helps to understand the criteria that goes in and the different fundamental pillars. So the communication, decision-making, execution, commitment that goes into each of the evaluations.
Thank you, Eric.
I think it's just also maybe important to note too, I don't know if the question pertained to the outcome of the evaluation, whether or not you made a team. That's something that we would announce in early June, typically. So you wouldn't find out. I know the like if you're in the academy, the 2013s, that's going to wrap up early May. But then we have to take all that data and go through the team selection process. So there's typically a couple weeks between the end of the academy and then also the when the travel teams are then announced.
All right. Anyone, any other questions?
Yep. So depending on the age level, this is a question about soccer tournaments. So it really depends on the age level and the willingness of the team. Tournaments are supplemental, so it is something that the team has to agree to play in. But there are opportunities, and as a club, we help to guide teams based on their in level. And then if they are interested, we help to guide them into a tournament that is appropriate for them as far as the flighting and the other teams, the travel and the. So I could say for U10 boys, they'll be playing in a tournament at the end of the spring, and it'll be a tournament that requires them to stay out for the weekend at a tournament. It's the first tournament we've done. I know the U10 girls team that is at the equivalent level, they've played at a couple of tournaments already that are more local levels. So it's just kind of depending on how the team goes and what the desired interest is based off of all of the members of the team.
Yep. I mean, typically the younger kids, we generally encourage for travel teams to play at least 2 tournaments a year. A lot of the times you might get 2 in the fall because spring can get tough with multi-sports and cancellations and rain and all that kind of stuff. A lot of times in the fall, there's a lot, especially for the younger kids, maybe pre-U11 and younger. There are a lot of Halloween tournaments where kids can dress up in costumes and play, as ghouls, zombies, pirates, some kind of theme, and it's generally for fun. Those tournaments are kind of within that 1 hour bubble, Mount Olive, Freehold, East Brunswick. There's a number of good ones for consideration there.
right. Thank you, Eric and Matt. Charlie, do you have anything to add before we wrap it up?
No, I do not, but I will say thank you to everyone for participating. Please, do not hesitate to ask us any questions. Reach out to the VPs, reach out to me, reach out to Ruben. Throughout this process, we want to be as transparent as we possibly can. It is a stressful time of the year for some people, some players. We don't want it to be. We want to just basically do the right thing for the kids and put them in the right positions.
All right, then we appreciate you coming on online. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening and enjoy the rest of the spring season. All right.